Our text today is just two words of the verse that has been our theme verse for this whole month of July. It is Micah chapter 6, verse 8. Let me read it again. It says, "He has shown you, he has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. We need to start by doing a little bit of Bible study, word study this morning on this passage. You might have noticed in the Micah 6:8 song that we sang at the beginning of the worship time that what you heard was do justice, love mercy. But here it said love kindness. And if you look at all the different translations of that verse, you notice about half of the English Bibles will have love kindness, and the other English translations have love mercy. Now, mercy and kindness are related ideas, right? But they're not the same thing. Mercy is letting someone off the hook, has the idea of letting someone off the hook. Like a police officer, for example, that gives you a warning instead of a speeding ticket. Or the teacher who gives her student an extension on the paper that is due today. Or the king in the parable that Jesus told who forgave the debt of his chief steward. Mercy is not giving something the negative consequences to someone that they deserve for their own actions. Now, those acts of mercy might be done out of kindness, but they're not the same as kindness, which is something that you might show to strangers or puppies or to little children, like helping a little old lady across the street, or letting someone go ahead of you in the checkout line, or leaving an extra big tip at a restaurant even though what you're doing is picking up carry-out. They're both good things, mercy and kindness, but they're not the same. So, which one does the Lord require us to love? Because it says love mercy or love kindness. Well, to complicate things a little bit more, there are some translations like the New Jerusalem Bible that say love loyalty. And the Message version of it is be compassionate and loyal in your love. So why are there all these different kinds of translations? And the answer is the Hebrew word that is behind them, which is the word chesed, H-E-S-E-D, chesed. And there's no single English word that adequately translates that Hebrew word. And so it's translated, sometimes even within the same version of the scriptures, as mercy, kindness, love, loving kindness, steadfast love, faithfulness, faithful love, trustworthiness, loyalty, and even in some cases devotion or grace. Now you can just imagine how much ink the scholars have spilt over the years arguing about which one of these words is the best translation, or why it should actually be a combination of some of these words. And this is not the place to argue for one translation over another. But I want to note two important things. One is that the word chesed is a basic part of God's character. In Exodus chapter 34, where God reintroduces himself to Moses, he says, "I am the Lord, I am the Lord, the merciful and gracious God. I am slow to anger and rich in unfailing love, hesed, and faithfulness. And I show this unfailing love, hesed, to many thousands by forgiving every kind of sin and rebellion. Hesed is how God relates to Israel, to us, and really to the whole world and to all of God's creation. And the other thing that's important about this word in the Bible is that it is always used in the context of a formal relationship between two parties, like a marriage relationship, for example, or especially God's relationship to Israel. So it's really the idea of loyalty and faithfulness and steadfastness that is expressed in mercy and kindness and love. But the key, I think, to understanding this text this morning is really the word love. The action phrase in the word love, mercy, love, kindness is the word love. Love, hesed. And it's the idea of loving hesed that points us to our application this morning. I think I can explain that by telling you about a movie that I saw just this Friday evening. It's called Healing River, and you can find it on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon, or if you have Amazon Prime, you can stream it on Amazon. And one of the things that's really cool about this movie is it was filmed right here in Cincinnati. And it was written and directed by a guy named Mitch Teamley, who some of you may know. Mitch was on staff at College Hill Presbyterian Church for a while, and his wife was on staff at Northminster Presbyterian Church as well. And I think he must still live in College Hill or nearby, because a lot of the movie is filmed at the College Hill Coffee Shop, which in the movie is known as Amblin Coffee, and is said to be in Over the Rhine, which is where the movie takes place. And there's also Little Flower Church that shows up prominently in the movie. It is very well written and really very nicely filmed, and it includes some good music that Mitch wrote himself, both the lyrics and the music itself. And it has some cool plot twists that you don't see coming. Now, the acting isn't going to win any Oscars, but it's decent, and it's a powerful, moving, hopeful story. I don't want to give too much of it away, because I hope that you will watch it. But here's how it's described on the Amazon website. After a woman's only son is killed by a drug-addicted teen, her grief turns to rage by the court's leniency. Desperately seeking revenge on the young man, she is forced to face the demands of her Christian faith. What happens next is unimaginable. I love this movie, and I didn't love just the message, which I did, which was the message of radical forgiveness, which you do see coming in the movie. But there's also this message of the power of persistent love, the overcoming power of love. Both God's love which both pursues the woman who lost her son and the teenager who killed him. I love the message of the movie, and I also loved the fact that Mitch made this movie. Mitch, I've talked to him years ago, and he has this passion. He was on this track of writing and directing his own movies, and I love that he made this movie, that he was driven not just to make movies, but to make this kind of movie, with the kind of message that it has. Here's what God requires of us. God requires us to love kindness and mercy and grace and loyalty and faithfulness and forgiveness and hesed. The way Mitch does in pursuing this movie, the way the story in the movie portrays. Because when we love something, we pursue it. We honor it. We lift it up. We work for it. We protect it. We celebrate it. When we love something, our whole selves are oriented toward the object of our love. God requires us to have our lives oriented toward this hesed kind of goodness. Maybe that's a good way to translate this. Love goodness. Love all the ways that a person can be good to other people. Last week it was do justice. But this week it is love, this kind of mercy, loyal grace, kindness, goodness. What might that look like in particular and concrete ways? I think it might look like wearing a mask in public, even if you think it might not be necessary, even if you're 99% sure that you don't have COVID-19, you do it out of consideration for other people. I think loving hesed might look like a church that pitches in to make sure that every one of its members has a good, safe place to live, and its staff are celebrated, and no one is forgotten, even if they can't come to church or don't want to come to church regularly. I think loving hesed looks like being more concerned about providing refuge for immigrants than protecting our border. I think it might look like the woman who cycled home Thursday evening from her shift at Christ Hospital. She cycled home and she saw that the Saban Cafe was open, so she stopped and said, "What's this all about?" And we told her, and so then she cycled home and changed her clothes and came back and bought a crepe and an iced coffee, and then she cycled a couple more blocks away to buy a frozen slushie from a 12-year-old girl neighbor of hers who is doing a summer entrepreneurship project. I think loving mercy, loving kindness looks like Cain and Choosing Hope Adoption Agency, which is going to be moving in, opening an office in our building this month. It looks like Whole Again, an interfaith hospitality network, and City Gospel Mission, and Happen across the street. I think loving hesed looks like what my version of the Bible calls the marks of a true Christian, found in Paul's letter to the Romans in chapter 12, beginning with verse 10. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal. Be ardent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in suffering. Persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. There's already the groundwork for next week's sermon. Do not repay anyone evil for evil, but take thought for what is noble in the sight of all. If it is possible, so far as it depends upon you, live peaceably with all. I think that's what Hesed, loving Hesed, looks like. What God requires of us is to love this way of being, this way that the Apostle Paul talks about, way of being. What should we be doing right now? What does the Lord require of us? What should I do? Do this. Be this. Love mercy, love kindness, love faithfulness. It's the way of Jesus. Amen?